Welcome in to the FTN NFL Draft Team Preview Series. I'm your host, Mike Randle. You can follow me on Twitter at Randle Rant. We continue our journey around the NFL to each of the 32 NFL teams. And today we talk about one of the most popular ones, folks, across the country. Everyone loves the Detroit Lions, and the person to talk to is Dave Birkett of the Detroit Free Press. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Birkett. I had the honor of talking to you, Dave, in the offseason, getting into this past season, and we talked about the potential of this Lions team, and I think they pretty much met it, and expectations, I think, would be high going into 2023.
You're right on both accounts there, Mike. I mean, I think a lot of people were optimistic about the Lions last year, just coming off the way they finished that 2021 season. Dan Campbell was back, and maybe some of the changes they made, and it certainly paid off. I mean, slow start, and that cost them, kept them out of the playoffs at the end of the day. But 9-8, their first winning record since 2017. The offense was really good, even when they were dealing with injuries early on in the season. Certainly finished top 5 in most categories. And I think the hope and the expectation is with a couple of those draft picks, with some of the free agent dollars that they have, if they upgrade that defense. Given the rest of the NFC North, the state of that division right now, the Lions should enter 2023 as the favorite to win the division for the first time in 30 years.
Yeah, Dave, we talked about 2 years ago in Dan Campbell's first year, they were playing hard, they were competing, and that was really a sign that they were still playing hard for him, and they were still in games despite the record not being where it should be. That translated to this year where they competed throughout the year and were staring at a playoff berth late in the season. And I felt, Dave, across the country, people were rooting for him because all of a sudden, how do you not love Dan Campbell? And this team continued to play hard, and all of a sudden you had a Detroit team no one wanted to play who had a legitimate shot at the playoffs.
No, I think that's a big part of Dan Campbell. That is such a big part of why there's, so much love for the Lions nationally. I mean, it started right Hard Knocks, and really it started back at his introductory press conference. I think, it really resonated with people in Detroit and even people nationally who maybe scratched their head at, what's this guy talking about, biting kneecaps and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You could appreciate his genuineness and his passion and to see the way this really young team, even in the face of adversity. I mean, 10-1 that first season and starting 1-6 last year, continued to fight and continued to pull off some wins. They were an easy team to root for. Plus, if we're being honest, right, people love offense, and the Lions had a really good offense and a whole lot of different weapons that you could plug into your fantasy team and, have success with. So they were a fun team to watch. They go for it on fourth down. They've got a really, lovable coach, and it's an organization that, because it's been beat down for so long, I think has a lot of people rooting for it nationally and across the league.
Well, let's start at the quarterback position. Of course, Jared Goff has done a nice job. But my question, which will tie in, of course, to our preview here, is are they committed to Goff for this season? Are they looking to bring someone else in, or are they pretty much going to go with him, make a run here at the playoffs, and then assess at the end of the year? Because I think there's so many weapons here, Dave, on offense. I think he's sort of the tipping point here. What's their perspective on Jared Goff?
Yeah, look, I do think the Lions, start by saying this, I do think the Lions are rolling with Jared Goff for 2023 and maybe beyond. I mean, he had what he considered one of his best seasons last year, went up in most, statistical categories. More important than that, he really took care of the ball. I mean, 324 straight pass attempts to end the season without an interception. Mm-hmm. It's a big part of why the Lions had success. He did what the Lions wanted, what they asked. Him and Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, have a really good relationship. There's a lot to like sort of about where he is. I guess wild card in it is the Lions do have the 6th pick in the draft from the LA Rams. And, so I think there's a small chance that a quarterback could be in play there. Ultimately, I don't think the Lions want to do that. I think they like Jared Goff. They like where this thing is headed. And when you look at the NFC, I've said this a few times, right? AFC, you've got Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and, Justin Herbert and Josh Allen. You got this gauntlet of quarterbacks that you have to run through if you're gonna make it to the Super Bowl. And so you probably have to have one of those guys to beat, a couple of those on back-to-back weeks. In the NFC, there's not that. I mean, there's Jalen Hurts, and that's really it when it comes to a quarterback standpoint. And there's some good teams, right? The Eagles and the 49ers and Cowboys have a really good defense. And so I think the Lions, the way they look at things right now, because Jared Goff played so well this past season, they say, hey, we can win with this. If we put the right cast of characters around him, we continue to build this thing. And they have a lot of young guys right now and a lot of draft capital still to come. they think they can build a sustainable winner that way. So I'd be a little surprised if the Lions went quarterback round one, though I do think you could make the case that, hey, if your Patrick Mahomes is there, if there's a guy that you really believe in is there, you should take him if you're the Lions.
And look at the weapons on the Lions offense that Goff will have to work with. I mean, just superb. And Dave, what I love is there's depth and there's a plenty of robust options here. Even getting trading away TJ Hawkinson, that DJ Chark had a solid year, especially towards the end. Jameson Williams came back and had some big plays. Of course, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been fantastic. And at the running back position, where do you think they're going with Swift, of course, who's super talented, but has struggled to stay on the field? Just a lot of offensive weapons here, but really I think they need to get Swift right. And if they can, I think this offense is one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, look, they do have a couple free agent decisions to make, I guess, right? DJ Chark is a free agent. Jamaal Williams, who led the NFL in touchdowns last year, he's a free agent. So we'll see exactly what shakes out with those guys. If they don't bring those guys back, they need replacements for both of them, frankly. Even with Jameson Williams, you'd expect him to take a big step forward. Swift specifically, he is such a big part of what they want to be on offense, and he has that game-breaking home run ability that maybe Jamaal Williams doesn't, even though Jamaal had the better season. We saw what DeAndre did early in the year when he was healthy. He got hurt in the first half of the first game. And then when he was healthier at the end of the year, I think he finished the season well too. So the Lions are still optimistic that he can be a big part of their offense. But, because Swift, his injuries have been a part of his history really for all three seasons, I think you're going to see them add to that running back position this offseason. This is the final year of DeAndre Swift's rookie deal. Frankly, I think the Lions have to start preparing for the future. But if we're just talking 2023, I could see Swift. And if Jamaal Williams comes back, I could see those two fronting the running game again.
I would assume, Dave. See, I naively assume that they would definitely bring back Jamaal Williams. Do you think there's a chance that they don't in this case?
No, I think it's probably about money. I mean, I think, they want him back. And, Jamaal has said he wants to be back. I talked to Jamaal a couple times at the end of the season. And I don't think his price tag is going to go sky high. I mean, there are some good running backs in free agency. So if a team wants to spend on a Saquon Barkley, if he makes it, or a Josh Jacobs, if he makes it, they have that option out there. And Jamaal's, his market value is not going to be anywhere near those guys. So I think it'll be reasonable enough that the Lions would, bring him back. And, given that he wants to be here, it makes sense. But look, this is a good year for running backs in the draft. I've even thought long and hard about, Bijan Robinson at 18, if he's there, let's say, for the Lions, right? Because, you think about the way when Jared Goff had his most success in LA, he was with Todd Gurley, in Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, he was in LA when they spent a first round pick on Todd Gurley. And so if the Lions want to approximate that, and they do, and they think that's the best way for them to have success is to put all these pieces around Jared Goff and build this young defense and have it come together. Maybe that means, spending some significant draft capital on a running back at some point.
And I would think, of course, they would want to focus on defense as well. Defense, interesting this year with the Lions. They did get to the quarterback here, Dave. Lions ended up finishing with 39 sacks, which was middle of the NFL. But the issue, of course, DVOA with the Lions, they were the fourth worst in the NFL. So I would think also they do have obviously some stud rookies who had a huge impact, of course. Talk to me about the defense. Where do you think they'll look to bolster that as well to match this incredible offense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's where they need the most help, right? I just talk about them adding, a piece on offense. And I think people here in Detroit would, if they went and spent their 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks in defense, I think people here would be happy because, they look at what this defense did, the struggles it had early in the year. Even after they sort of got things, turned around, I mean, and they did that the last, 10 games when they were winning, they played significantly better, but they still had some issues in the secondary that they need to shore up a little bit there. So, look, if we're talking draft, I think, maybe where the strength of the draft is at number 6, you're still looking at a defensive lineman. And I go back to sort of what Brad Holmes told me before his first draft, his GM was, he compared it to the Rams and what they did there. And he said, in LA, they drafted Michael Brockers and Aaron Donald and Robert Quinn. And so they spent these first round picks and basically back-to-back years on pass rushers. And he said he wanted to build a beast. And he was talking about the offensive line at the time. And they They obviously added Penei Sewell to the mix, and they did that. Really good offensive line. But I think the same applies to defense in that they have Aiden Hutchinson and they have James Houston. And, I think they'll bring back John Kaminsky, and Aleem McNeil's a young guy that played fairly well. So they have some parts up there, but if they could add another one at 6, if they could add another one in a trade up, I don't know that they would do that, but one of those really elite guys, I think that's what maybe they need to complete that front, and that helps the secondary, which that's the place that's devoid of the most talent right now. So they do need a cornerback. They could get that in free agency and the draft, but if they build a really strong line to keep this pass rush strong, that helps all areas of that defense.
Well, that's the key, Dave. We appreciate a few minutes here. We would love to check back in with you as we get closer to the draft. So it looks like Jared Goff is safe. The question is, will they target someone who could be the quarterback of the future with that early pick, or are they all in this year, right? This could be the year where they solidify that defense and make a run, because to me, division's wide open. Vikings had a good season, but sure, there was a little bit of regression that came at the end. Green Bay, of course, is very up in the air, and the Bears are still slowly rebuilding. So not out of the realm of possibility that we could be looking at a Lions division title here, right?
This could be the first time in 30 years, depending on, what happens with Aaron Rodgers when he comes out of his darkness stage, that you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Green Bay, right? And that's a tough thing for any team in the division to overcome. So I think the Lions will enter 2023 as the favorite. There's a lot to like about, what they have coming back, where they're headed. And frankly, I think a lot of people here in Detroit would be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs next year, given the state of the division, regardless of what happens in Green Bay, regardless of what happens in Minnesota, just based on who the Lions are and who they have coming back.
Folks, when I want insight on the Lions, there's only one guy to go to, Dave Birkett here, Detroit Free Press. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Birkett. Dave, thank you so much for a few minutes here. We appreciate it. Love to check back in with you as we get close to the draft here. But the Lions on everyone's radar, big 2023 coming up.
Sounds good, Mike. We'll do it again.